Hello everyone, this is Mekkah, and we're back to doing the Fire Emblem character sorter. It's been a long time, so I'm going to explain how it works real quick in a little bit. So, most people use this sorter. I'll post a link in the description to rank their characters from favorite to least favorites. You can do like multiple games, as you can see below. I've got everything selected right now. What I actually like to use it for is making a tier list. And that way I just pick the character that's better between the two of them, and if I just keep doing that, then eventually the best one will rise to the top, right? And that way we can see which characters I actually think are the best. And this time we're going to be doing Binding Blade. I do need to display images, don't turn it off. So Binding Blade. And I know the dimensions are going to mess up, so hold on tight while I press start. So the way it works is I pick between the characters which one is better, which one is worse. The standards, or I guess you could say parameters for this, it's not going to be like efficient or LTC, but more like which of these characters makes the game easier, which ones would you miss more if you were not to use them, which one helped the average player more. So I will assume there's no grinding, no arenaing or anything, no abuse of bosses or dancing or staff abuse or whatever. Just playing the game, trying to win reliably and somewhat quickly if possible, but if not, whatever. So you're probably going to disagree with me on some pickings, but that's fine. That's what the comment section is for, right? So this is FE6, but we got Elwood and Hector here. This is their FE7 portraits, but they are in FE6 as trial map characters. I'm not going to count trial maps characters. This is just for the main game. So I'm going to tie if they're both not in the game. And if there's a character that's like in the game against a character that's not in the game, I'm just going to let the character that's actually in the game win. So tie. These are not playable. These are also not playable. These are also not playable. That was easy. These are also not playable. These are both playable. Yodel joins before Corel and is better in pretty much every regard. Corel is like a useful filler character for the final map, but I think most people have like too many characters already for the final map, so Yodel it is. Yodel's staff rank is actually really good. It's an S rank, so you can use the Holy Maiden as well as Warp, Rescue, Restore, Barrier, whatever you want really. So really good units. Fortify, let's not forget that one. Dayan versus Yuno. Both of these are like useful for some things in chapter 21 and not useful very much outside of these. Dayan can one round Wyvern Lords with the Silver Bow, which is great actually, combat wise. Yuno is just very bad and nothing else. So I think for most people, Dayan would be the better character. I'm not going to factor in the fact that you have to go to Saka to get him, or Ilya to get her. That's just kind of whatever. I'm also assuming you're recruiting every character you can, by the way. So Douglas versus Nime. Nime is one of the best characters in the game actually. Very underrated sometimes, but even though she joins very late, her warp range is just humongous with her, like, I think it's like 20 base magic, 21, it's insane. And Douglas, well, he's a general, he's not very useful. His accuracy sucks, his resistance sucks, he's got good strength and defense and HP, and that's pretty much it. Nime is much more useful. Zeus versus Yu. I've got a soft spot for flyers, I will admit. Flyers are very good. Zeus joins with nearly capped strength. Almost everything else about him is pretty bad. Like his HP is good, but then his skill and speed are bad. He has D rank lances, which is awful. But Yu doesn't really do all that much better. I'm assuming you recruit him for at least 5,000 gold, but actually making him good requires another 5,000 gold to be paid when you recruit him, and that's really awful. That's gold that could go towards an angelic robe from the secret shop, or the boots from a later chapter, or a couple of killer lances. That's gold you could spend in a much better way. Whereas Zeus, his only cost is promotion item, and Yu has the exact same problem. So I'm gonna go with Zeus. I think he's much better when trained. Yu's stats, even when like purchased at the full price, just aren't that good. Garrett versus Faye, or Fa, whatever the latest translation patch is. Garrett is like a useful filler at base level. You can use the killer axe. He's actually kind of underrated, I feel like. Like his axe ranks could be a bit higher, I will admit, but at the same time, like all it means is he can't really use armor mats, but he can use almost everything else that matters, like killer axes, and he's got the 30% crit bonus from being a berserker. Fa, I guess what people like about her is that she's forced into the final map, so they want to train her a bit, but it takes a lot of training for Fa to be useful by any means in the final map. And honestly, I don't think even if she's trained, she's not that great. She's useful to like soak up status stabs though, because of her high resistance. That's a nice trick you can do. You could put Fa in the bottom deployment slot, and that will make all the status stabs go for her, but she has like 20 or 30 base resistance or something. It's ridiculous. That's pretty cool. So it depends on which one of these you value more, and personally I value Garrett more, but I can see people can disagree with that. Sophia, bottom 3 worst units in the game. Stats are awful upon joining time. She finds a guiding ring, that's really all her usefulness. It's a decent contribution, not gonna lie. It's actually pretty cool that she does that, but she does literally nothing else. Whereas Igran is like a decent pre-promote sniper. She one-rounds wyverns as well. She needs some rank help to get to the silver bow and the merclades, but killer bows alone are pretty good. Percival versus Cecilia. I do really love Cecilia, but Percival is like a demigod. Like, I will rant about Cecilia being great any day, but Percival is like also like top 5. Cass versus Milady. Cass is a thief, and I like thief utility, but not so much that I will rate it over what I think is probably the best unit in the game. Like, I think Milady, Rutger, and maybe Marcus are like the best 3 units in the game. And I know Marcus is like bad for part of the game, but like FE6 top tiers are pretty balanced. I'll talk more about it when Milady comes up against one of them. Barth versus Ray. I actually think Ray is pretty bad. I'm assuming hard mode, by the way. He doesn't get hard mode bonuses, but he does feel like a lot worse in hard mode because he gets doubled by things. There's a lot more trouble hitting. Like dark magic in general is okay in FE6, not great, not bad. But Ray's stats just aren't very good for like his joining time and his base level. You can like insta promote him, but it doesn't really make him all that good. And when you do, he only gets E rank staff, so he can't even really be a good staff bot. Whereas Barth is like a decent pre-promote, alright? He's like, his skill and speed are average, but not great. But his strength is really high. He can like 2-shot things with longbows and stuff. He can use steel bows. He can like 1-shot unpromoted wyvern riders. That's like pretty good. So I'm gonna go with Barth. Echidna versus Elfin. Ooh, I mean, Elfin lets units move again, which is great. He's not a dancer, but he's like a bard, so it's like the same thing. And Echidna is a useful pre-promote, but not as great as Elfin. Elfin is useful from the moment he joins until the end of the game, whereas Echidna is useful for like 4 or 5 chapters. After that, she's not that great anymore. She has a pretty low luck, so she has a chance to get crits. Her speed is high, but her bulk leaves something to be desired. She's still pretty good though. I like her a lot, but I like Elfin more. Dancers are just too good. Same here, like Tate is an okay unit. Not as good as Shanna, as I've explained in Pitfall 6, but definitely not a unit that's worth like shrugging over. She has hard mode bonuses, but those don't make her great at combat or anything. She's not like invincible like someone like Milady is, for example. Or Latham, like you can't really beat a dancer with mediocre combat like that, even though Tate is a flyer. Geese versus Klein. Klein is like good when he joins. He falls off slowly, but he remains useful for quite a while actually, because he just does so much chip damage with the silver bow, and it's easy to get him to S rank for merclades if you really want one of those. Like Shin is definitely the better merclades user, but if you don't want to use him or Sue, then Klein is definitely your best bet. He's just so easy to use, low maintenance. Whereas Geese, to make him good, you have to like make use of his growths, but he never really becomes great out of them. I think his best use might be to actually just pre-promote right away, promote right away, and just make use of the 30% crit bonus. But even then, I think his speed is just too mediocre to double. I'm gonna go with Klein here. Shin versus Gonzalez. I remember Mangs tied these, even though I feel like they're worlds apart. Shin is mounted, which is such a huge advantage. He's much more accurate. Like Gonzalez is like the least accurate unit in the game with his low skill. But Gonzalez, oh boy, Shin, oh boy, he hits everything. They both get hard mode bonuses, which boost their stats a little bit in hard mode. Both of these come out pretty good because of those. But Shin's combat is just insane. He's so good at using the Merclades because he's like super mobile with it, right? He can kill a Manakete without taking a counter while having 8 move. His mobility is just ridiculous. He can rescue drop people. His 8 is really high because he's mill, and he's also a mounted unit, so I think he has like 17 or 16-8 or something. It's just insane. Like Gonzalez's combat is good, but the fact that you cannot carry Gonzalez anywhere because he's so heavy, like his huge con is just so big that most people can't even pick him up. Especially after promotion, that's just a huge problem for him. It makes him harder to carry along. So I'm gonna go with Shin. Uche versus Fur. Or Fear, I guess. No matter how you pronounce it, it sounds weird. I don't like either of these very much, but if I had to pick one, I would go with Fear. Uche is just a pretty bad unit, honestly. He joins at a time where I know there's like a lot of axe users around, but he's just so annoying to train on when he gets 2-hit killed by everything. He doesn't double reliably when he joins. He has low durability. He always gets countered. He's just not that good, okay? And he doesn't grow fast enough to, you know, outstrip others. Like, some people actually think Uche is better than Deke, which I think is just absurd. Deke joins better at an earlier point. How is Uche ever going to be better? But Fur is like, people often compare it to Rutger, which is not really fair because Rutger is like the best unit in the game, probably, along with Milady. But Fur is also like pretty decent if you train her up, and she's not that hard to train. Not as hard as Uche anyway, because the Shamseer is basically her personal weapon, and it's pretty good. She doubles things at base level. She's like just as fragile as Uj, if not more so. But I feel like her training is much easier to do. The map she joins in has a lot of terrain, so she's easier to train at base level compared to Uj. Uj could make use of the same terrain, but he doesn't get the same performance as Fur no matter what. And when Fear promotes, she gets the Broken Sword Master class, gets 30% crit, kills everything. She's almost as good as boss killing as Rutger is. Not as good because her strength is lower, but she's still like I could still see a spot for her basically. Whereas Uj is just not a good unit. Barth versus Wendy, well, they're both meme tier bad, but Barth has some strong points about him, whereas Wendy is just laughably bad overall. But they're both really bad. They'll both end up at the bottom for sure. Astor versus Linnea. Mang said something like, yeah, Linnea has to be trained, and Astor doesn't, so Astor better. Or no, wait, he said Linnea's better actually, because Astor's a thief. I didn't really get it. So, Astor definitely the better unit between the two. He's actually very good at combat. Especially for a thief. He has like, he can use the light brand at basic, use the killing edge, he has high speed, he doubles everything. He's good in the Western Isles, all the axe users, he just wrecks them pretty much. He has one more movement than Linnea, which gives him some extra flexibility. He doesn't promote, but he doesn't need to. I mean, thief utility is useful no matter what. There's a lot of good stealable items in FE6, like the Delphi shield, for example, and a couple of gems. And Linnea, like, she's a mage, but she's very underleveled and very weak. Her magic growth is like the highest in the game, but her base is actually very bad. It's like 4 or 5 in chapter 8, that's horrendous. She can be trained, it's not undoable, but she's definitely the worst unit here. Astor it is. Shrek versus Noah. These units join like at the same time, with roughly the same stats, but Noah's are slightly better. Noah also has a higher base level, so he can promote earlier using a Night Crest. And he also has a higher sword rank. I think he can use killing edges at base, which is really good. Shrek doesn't really have anything that stands out. Sue versus Zealots. I actually like both of these units quite a bit. Sue is awesome. I think she's pretty underrated, honestly. People like to compare her to Shin, and they'll be like, well, Shin is the better Nomad, so I'm going to use him. But you should probably, like, you can use both if you're willing to go to Saka. And in normal mode, Sue is actually the better Nomad, I feel like, because Shin doesn't get his heart mode bonuses, so Sue has like an actual edge in speed, and then she can also use the killer bow, where Shin joins with like D bows. So in that case, Sue is better. But this is hard mode, and it's kind of irrelevant anyway, because this is Sue versus Zealot, and not Sue versus Shin or whatever. But I just thought I'd throw that out there. I like both of these a lot, but I'm gonna go with Zealot. Just being an 8-move paladin is just so broken in this game, even though he falls off later. Excuse me. Saul versus Dorothy. Well, Saul, one of the better units in the game, high staff rank. One of the first people, if not the first person who can use warp actually. Dorothy, just a really bad archer. We're going with Saul. Rutger versus Chlorine. I love Chlorine and everything. She's like a pretty good utility unit, but Rutger is one of the best in the game. Easily the best boss killer. And also just a really good combat unit in general. Lou versus Chad. Neither of these I hold in very high regard. I do like thief utility and I like Lou's chip, but I think they're both like okay, but not amazing. Not bad though. I didn't really say a whole lot there, but you get what I mean. Chad is responsible for getting you quite a lot of gold before you get any other thieves, so that is quite some credit for him, honestly. Lou has good chip damage, accurate chip damage early on. His magic is a bit low, but then he promotes and it's fine. So I think I'm gonna go with Lou, but I could be persuaded either way. Lot versus Shanna. Well, I did like an entire Pitfalls episode on Shanna and how she's really good, so I'm just gonna vote her and get it over with. Deke versus Ward. Ward is a bad unit, Deke is a really good one, so that's pretty easy. Merlinus, I don't even know if I want to tier Merlinus, honestly. He's pretty useful for some gimmicky things, but it's hard to determine how much credit you want to give him for it. Like being able to transport the warp staff around with like inventory tricks, and distracting enemies without actually losing you a unit, because when Merlinus dies, he just comes back. But Ellen, I think, is a bit better because, you know, warp is pretty useful. Staff utility in general is just more useful than Merlinus. I think Merlinus is like an interesting unit. I don't know where to put him yet, but I think Ellen is one of the better ones compared to Merlinus. Both of these are really terrible. Wolt and Boars. I like the chip damage that Wolt provides, even though it's not very damaging or accurate, whereas Boars is like semi-durable, but not really, because he gets doubled fairly quickly, and his defense isn't even all that high, and his mobility is just a lot worse. I'm gonna go with Wolt, because, like, you know, theoretically, if you were to promote either one of these, Wolt would be much more useful. I'd much rather have a sniper with mediocre stats than a general, because the sniper could always help out with chip damage, whereas the general never really will be that useful. so we'll go with Wolt. Alan versus Lance, they're very close, very, very close indeed. Like, if they both double, then Alan is easily better because his strength is better, but Lance doubles a little bit earlier, so it really depends on what enemy you're facing, how their speed is doing, how their strength is doing. They're very, very close. You should use both most of the time, even though only one of them can promote quickly with a Night Crest, but it's actually a toss-up here. I'm going to go with Ellen. I think his durability is a little better from the top of my head, but don't quote me on that. But in general, I think it's common enough in hard mode where they both or neither double. In that case, Ellen is better. Roy versus Marcus. Well, Marcus already said is one of the better units because he's just so strong compared to your other characters in the early game. And even later on, he can be useful, Rescue Chopper. Whereas Roy is someone you have to baby, and training him doesn't really give you all that much. It can be helpful sometimes to train him to survive a bolting or something, but honestly, it's just easier to just give him an angelic rope and get it over with. It's just not really worth using. He's bad when not trained, and he's bad when trained. There's really no way to go about it. Most of FE6, Roy spends time in someone's saddlebags. Jan is not in the game, so we're gonna start the Tie Fest once again. Yodel's playable, Karel's playable. There we go. Okay, so Nime already said one of the better units. Dayan is like, he's good for one chapter, but Nime is useful for many more chapters. Douglas versus Dayan. Douglas, I think, has utility for more than one map, so we'll go with him. He's like a useful block in some chapters. He's even useful in the one chapter that Dayan is good in, chapter 21, with all the wyverns. Garrett versus Zeiss, I gotta say, Zeiss is like, I don't know whether to say Zeiss or Zeiss. I think Zeiss is better in the long term. Garrett is a nice filler, but it doesn't really hold up. I do think Garrett is better than you. I don't really like you very much. Doesn't mean I don't like you. Okay, I dislike this unit right here. Fa versus you. Let me check if my cursor is on. Actually, it should be. Yeah, it is. Okay, good. I was worried for a second there. Okay, Fa versus you. I actually like Fa's filler actions better than you. Percival versus Igren. Percival, one of the best units. Cecilia, can't really vote against her in this case. Not even bias points. I think Cecilia is better. Barth versus Milady. Well, Milady, one of the best. I do think. I think Kath gets like, people actually tell people to kill Kath, even though like actually she's not hard to recruit. She really isn't. But I'm not even going to count it against her, even if she was. I think Kath is like decent for a thief, as decent as you want a thief to be, because you don't need stats to be a good thief, right? So if you were to replace one of your thieves with Cass, whatever, you would get the same results. So I don't really care how bad her stats are. Thief utility is useful. Barth is also useful though. I think I'm going to vote for him because he's strong. I know Crash Boom Bang will approve. Ray versus Kath. I actually like Kath's utility better than Ray. I know people are going to hate me for it, but Ray is just not a good unit in hard mode. Not at all. It's very inaccurate. Pretty hard to find a spot for him in like the tight 12x. There's like not that many deployment slots. So you'd have to bump out a pretty good unit for him. And then he just doesn't hit anything. And then the chapter after that, chapter 13, he has a hard time keeping up, has a hard time killing anything. He doesn't bomb around for a long amount of time. I just really like Free Thieves better. These are the same character. I'm gonna tie them, in fact. Tate, Echidna. Tate definitely better in the long term. Flying is much more useful. But like when Tate joins, Echidna is definitely the better character. So this is one that like Tate starts out worse, but she gets better slowly as the game goes on. I'm gonna rate Tate higher. But let it be said that Echidna is really good at base level. Klein versus Shin. When Klein joins, I think the gap is at the smallest between the two. Let's need Klein's best place, and I think Shin still like sort of beats him out on speed. He's very close at least. So, and then as the game goes on, Shin gets XP much faster, becomes much stronger than Klein. So Shin definitely the better unit. Between these two, I actually want to say Klein is better. I really do not like Gonzalez very much in this regard. Like I put him in my top 8 of favorite units to use, even though I know it's bad. But I actually think Klein is better. Gonzalez versus Gizeh, the classic matchup. I think Gonzalez's combat is no argument better. Absolutely much better. Like he is much faster, which means his accuracy issues are actually less bad because he gets to attack twice, and that means he has twice as many chances to hit the enemy. And Giz has maybe 5 to 10 hit advantage over him at best for him. Like people often say Giz's skill is better, but it's not by enough to where it's like reliable. He still has hit issues. But Gonzalez's speed just completely overrides that, and he's also stronger. And after they promote, I think he also gets an extra point of skill compared to Giz, for example. So his promo bonus is better. And Gonzalez just hits so much harder. Like, he can usually 2-hit KO enemies. Geese doesn't really do that reliably. And just reliable doubling. After promotion, Gonzalez's hit issues are basically gone. Because even if he misses once out of twice, he can still crit for the second hit. So his advantages are much more significant than Geese. But Gonzalez has that really bad constitution where it's harder to carry him around. And as a result, he fails to keep up with your other units. Which is really annoying. It's actually kind of annoying. But I did say this would be not for like efficiency, but more like, what's it called? More like a casual playthrough where you kind of want to go fast, but you don't really care too much if you go slow. More like make the game easier. And in that regard, I think Gonzalez is actually better. But I think for like, if you were to talk like efficiency, low turn count, that kind of thing, Geese, I think, wins out. But I'm going to go with Gonzalez here. Barth versus Fear much better. OJ versus Barth. I don't like OJ, but Barth is much worse. Like 4 movements and bad accuracy is just such a bad combination. Astor versus Noah. I like both of these, like decent utility units. But I think I like Astor's thieving slightly more than Noah's cavalier utility. Linnea and Noah. Noah is definitely the better one of these. He's so much more durable, it's insane. He's actually good at base level, whereas Linnea requires so much babying and hand holding to be good. Same for Trek, even though Trek is worse than Noah. Still like him better than Linnea. Soul versus Zealots. I like Zealot a lot, but Soul's staff utility just wins me over here. Dorothy is bad enough to lose to Zealot though. Sue is basically a better version of Dorothy, like Archer on a horse or Archer not on a horse with no notable stat advantages. Goodbye, Dorothy. Rutger beats Lou because he's insane. Chlorine, I think, is also better than Lou. Great all-around unit. Like, I used Priscilla so much in FE7, and she had like negative magic, negative growths at least. She was still just useful in every single map. So Chlorine is like a better version of negative growths Priscilla. Shanna versus Deke. I think most people consider Deke better because he makes the game easier in a way. So in a fashion, I could vote for him in this tier list and not be a complete hypocrite. But I think Shanna is better. I think Deke is like a short term, he's like useful in chapter 2, and then every chapter after that he slowly gets worse, he stops doubling. Shanna just gains power as the game goes on, and like in the Western Isles, she is, I think you could argue for her to be your best unit with ease, besides like Rutger. So I'm gonna vote for her. There is a part of the game where Shanna is your best unit, and that's just amazing. Lots, I do think he's worse than Deke. Lot is definitely better than Ward. I think the difference between these two is pretty much that Lot has like enough speed to not get doubled. He doesn't double reliably, but at least he doesn't get doubled often. Ward gets doubled, and he also has worse skill and everything. Walt, Ellen much better. This is an interesting matchup because, yeah, I think Merlinus could actually argue that his tricks are better than Walt's early game chip. I'm gonna go with Merlinus here. Marcus versus Alan. I think Marcus, like, he's worse in the long term, sure, but Marcus is so essential for the early game, so powerful, and so useful in the long term even with his rescue dropping that I like him better than Alan. Alan has the same utility late game, don't get me wrong, and more than that because his combat gets better than Marcus's. But he's like, it's so hard to beat Marcus's early game power. It's just so, he's just so insanely strong, even in FE6 where he's super old. Alan definitely better than Roy, so is almost everyone else. Okay, Tie Fest time. Tie. Oh, never mind. Okay. Nime, Yodel. Nime is basically Yodel that joins earlier. That's a way to sum it up. She cannot use the Holy Maiden, but she's really good. She also has more staff range, or yeah, more staff range, because her base magic is higher from what I remember, and she also can use the Apocalypse when, maybe not when Yodel joins, but almost right after. So Nime it is. Douglas versus Yodel. Yodel definitely better here. I like his staff utility a lot. Tabarn, how the fuck did I get Tabarn? Karel, a different late joining unit. Karel, I actually think Douglas is better than Karel. I just don't think Karel is very useful because he joins so late, and his growths, sure, they're best in the game, but he only gets 1 level. And is he lucky to even see that level because it's actually pretty hard to get in that level. I tried to do it for an episode of Pitfalls, and it took like 10 kills or something because his XP gain is so slow since his level is so high. And then his stats still aren't like super amazing or anything. They're good enough to compete, but he doesn't do anything special. His movement is also low compared to your other characters because he cannot use the boots you buy from the secret shop. Whereas Douglas, I think, is a useful wall for a couple chapters, and I think that's nice. Dane, I think, is more useful than Karel. No, I'm actually going to vote Karel over Yuno. I really don't think Yuno's very useful. Okay, so she's at least in the game. Percival's top tier. Cecilia is definitely better than Zeus. I like Zeus, don't get me wrong, but these units are all better. This is a close one, because Igrana has the better combat at base, But when Z's gets going, he just dwarfs her in utility. So we'll go with Z's here. These units join in the same chapter, fun fact. Agran and Garrett. I think Agran is more useful in FE6. I think for most games, I would take the Berserker over the Sniper here. Because one range is just so important. But FE6 is very player phase based, and I would much rather have a good Archer than a mediocre Berserker, I guess. Oh fuck, I voted Garrett better. Whoops. Oh well. Okay, Garrett is better than Agran. Forget everything I said. Faye. I do think Agran is better than Faye by a little bit. Faye is better than Sophia though, for sure, because everyone is better than Sophia. Oh, this is a very close one. See, Latham joins in chapter 11, and Milady joins in chapter 13. So a bit of an advantage for Latham there. But Milady is so powerful. Like, FE6 enemies are so tough to kill. Like, so tough. And Milady can one round many of them. It's insane and bonkers. Like, Milady and Percival are like the only units that can one round in FE6. And that's just insane. You can't get over how powerful that is. And she flies, and she has good durability. Just great unit. I love Milady so much. Latham does beat pretty much every other combat unit though. Tate and Barth. I do like Tate a little better in the long term. I did put Tate above Echidna, if I recall, so I should put her above Barth as well. Speaking of which, okay, so Echidna definitely the better character between these two. Doubling is so important. She can make up for strength difference by using like killer weapons to fish for one KOs with crits. That's pretty good. I like Barth as a unit, sort of. I think people don't give him enough credit, but Echidna definitely better. Fur versus Shin. Shin is mounted, which is just a huge advantage. Again, most games I would pick the one range unit over the two range unit. But this is FE6, it's very player face centered, so I'm gonna go with Shin. Fur also has a worse start. Much worse durability. Klein versus Fur. This is a close one. I like Klein. It's like, do you want a good unit long term or short term? Because short term, Klein is much better. But as the game goes on, he gets worse, whereas Fur gets much better. So if you were to put him in a graph, they would make like a giant cross. And you know, my style is generally to just give it to the short-term unit. So I'll do that. But it's very close. Versus Gonzalez, though, I think she wins out. Gonzalez is just not a fan of him. I do think I voted him over Geese, though. But yeah, okay, I will definitely vote him over OJ. OJ is bad. Not as bad as... yeah, he's worse than Geese, for sure. Sol and Astor. Sol is just so good at staff using, man. It's just... You can't really beat a warp like that. Zealots and Astor. I like Zealot better still. Like, Thief Utility is so hard to rate. It's so hard to evaluate, especially Thief Utility with a bit of combat, like short-term combat. It's just so tough to evaluate, but I will rate these good combat units over him. Not Dorothy, though. Not Dorothy. Noah better than Dorothy for sure. Like, Dorothy is just so bad. Both of these are really bad. I like Linnea better, though. Like, the lowest turn count playthrough, FE6, this is just a fun fact. It has nothing to do with the rating, but the lowest turn count playthrough by Orisa of FE6 actually has Linnea as one of the most important units. Just a fun fact. But that's a rigged playthrough, so it can't really count for much. Linnea is like nice. Once she's trained, Dorothy, not as much. Linnea is easier to train, I feel, even though she joins later. Because she hits some resistance. Accuracy is also better. Yeah, I like both of these units a lot, but I think it's pretty well established that Rutger is better. Chlorine. I think Chlorine is easier to use for most people. I think she makes the game easier that way. I think Shanna might be technically the better unit though. Technically, if you were to think about it, because her flyer utility is so strong. Flyer or super utility horse. I will vote Shanna, but I know I will regret it. Chlorine versus Deke. Chlorine definitely better. She's just so flexible. Deke and Lou. Jeez. Early game strong versus longer term strong and early game chip. I'm tempted to go with Lou, even though Deke is like when Lou first joins, Deke is much better, but Lou is still useful, and then later on Deke becomes less useful. Not that bad. Like, Deke is never a bad unit though, so I think I have to give it to Deke, even though I much prefer I use Lou long term much more often than Deke. But I have to admit that Deke is not bad long term. Excuse me. Lot and Lou. Lou definitely the better unit here. Thief utility over Lot. I just don't like Lot that much. People say he's balanced and everything, but balance is not necessarily a good thing. Lot doesn't have any standout stats. He has a high defense growth with a low base. Everything else about him is pretty mediocre. Marcus is really good. Ellen, I think, is also better than her. Ellen beats Ellen, yeah, that's very clear. Lance also better. Don't really need to explain this. Pretty much everyone is better than Roy. Merlin's, though, that's a really big insult towards Roy. I don't know if I can do that, but I'm gonna do it anyway. Definitely better than Walt, though. You're in the game, you're in the game, you're playable, playable, playable. Get out of here. Okay, there we go. Tie. Okay. Yeah, so now we're 45%. We gotta take a quick break because this is taking a long ass time. Alright, and we're back. So we gotta battle the Titans here. Milady against Percival. I think Milady roughly joins at the same time as Percival in hard mode. You gotta wait to recruit Percival until chapter 15 to get his hard mode bonuses. So it's a little bit after. You got like 13, 14, 14x, and then a little bit of 15 before Percival joins. So that alone actually gives Milady like an advantage. And then she also flies, and they both kill like everything. There you have. There's like some differences in how good they are at certain things. Percival is better against some enemies because he has access to swords and axes. But overall, I think Milady is much better, and flight is just such a humongous advantage. I'm gonna go with Milady. Latham, like I love Percival's strength and everything, but I don't think he's so good that he's better than Latham. Dancing is just good enough, I think, to beat out Percival's great combat. So I'm gonna go with Latham. Tate, I do think is worse than Percival. Flying is good, but it has its limits. Percival doesn't, besides the fact that he doesn't fly. Cecilia versus Tate. Tate is like mediocrity that flies, whereas Cecilia is like mediocrity that heals and stabs and everything. I actually find Cecilia as much easier to use. I would think an average player would get more out of Cecilia, because all you gotta do for Cecilia to be helpful is do something good with the staff or the rescue command or a chip damage and keep her out of enemy range. That's good, whereas Tate is like more hard to utilize fully. And even when used to the full extent, I'm not sure if Tate can be argued as 100% better. I'm gonna go with Cecilia here. Zeiss versus Tate, another short-term versus long-term thing I want to say. Tate is definitely better than Zeiss by the time Zeiss joins, but every battle where Zeiss doubles, he destroys Tate because his strength is so much better, and so is his durability. But at the same time, Tate has been around since chapter 11 or so, 10 depending on your routes, whereas Zeiss is only around basically since 16x, so tough one. I'm gonna say Tate. Echidna, I mean, she basically destroys Zeiss like everyone else does, but then Zeiss promotes and he's like flying, so better. But Echidna has so much utility over Zeiss at that point. I think I'm gonna vote Echidna. I want to say the same for Bartra, but honestly, Bartra is not as good as Echidna. Not quite. I think Zeiss is actually better. Flight does win out over Bartra's miscellaneous utility with strength and everything. Like, Bartra is good, but at some point he just... I don't know how to explain this properly. Basically, Bartra doesn't really have the speed to double ever. So it's just one solid hit, and that's also Zeiss's main weakness, but Zeiss does actually gain the ability to double some things later on, I do believe. And once he gets access to Kiddo Lances, I think his offense is honestly better than Bartra's. Garrett's, well, he joins a lot later than Bartra. Other than that, they are fairly similar. Bartra has the chip with the steel bow. Garrett has the crit bonus. I'm gonna go with Bartra here, just because I don't think I can really say either one of them is really much better, but Bartra has more availability. Kath versus Garrett. I'm gonna say I hate raiding thief utility. It's hard. I'm just gonna go Garrett. Oh god, I'm gonna have to keep raiding thieves until I say Kath is better than someone. I think that alone makes me want to vote for her here. I'll say Agran here though. She's solid. I do think what Kath does is better than what Fav contributes though. I do also think like Fav's utility without trading her is better. You could argue that Ray is better in the long term, especially when he gets a Apocalypse after promotion. Once he's up to scratch, he has a very mediocre start though. It's hard to ignore that. I think I like Fav better. She's also very accurate. I like that. Ray has some accuracy issues. I do think Ray is better than you. They're pretty similar units, actually. As you can tell, I just had dinner. Sol versus Shin. Sol's staff utility, I think, wins out. Healing is too valuable. Shin's combat is like great, but he does have its disadvantages. He's not invincible or anything. Like if this were like Sol versus Milady or Sol versus Percival or something, maybe. Well, no, actually, I think Sol's better than Percival. But if it was like Sol versus Rutger, I would give Rutger the edge. But I think Sol beats out Shin overall. It's tough though. Shin versus Zealots, another long-term versus short-term thing. I think Shin's start is good enough to where Zealot's availability lead and promotion lead don't do enough to beat him out in the long term. It's close though. Okay, so definitely 2 short-term units, but Zealot is around for a lot longer, and I think he has more. Like I think he's useful for. I don't know if I want to say a longer time, but I think Zealot is more useful overall, and he's in more chapters. Sue versus Klein. I mean, Klein is probably better when he just joined, but just like Shin, I think Sue wins out overall. Klein and Astor. Thief utility, I want to say. Astor's at the best at the time that Klein joins, really. So it's tough to like find a really good place for Klein. There's maps where Klein is useful where Astor's not, like though, like chapter 15 for example. Astor can't really do anything, but I will still say Astor overall. I like Thief utility, but I don't know how much points to give someone for it. Like gold is just so useful in FE6 because you can buy boots and you can buy angelic robes and you can buy killer lances. So any gold you can get is welcome. But there's no droppable items in FE6 either, so almost everything you get comes from thieving and like taking chests. But there are chest keys, so I don't want to give him full credit for all the chests, but it is convenient to use a thief for those. Noah versus Klein, I was gonna say. Well, Noah's not like he can be a long-term unit if you like train him and then promote him. But if you like level him like 3 times or something and then promote him, he's not gonna be better than Klein for very much. I think in either case you could argue that he's better than Klein just because of his mount though. But at the same time, Klein's combat really outshines Noah for a bit. Not for too long though, but he's much better against Wyverns, just not. I'm gonna go with Klein. I'm really confused though, which one is better. It's FE6 characters are so hard to rate sometimes. Fur versus Noah. Fur definitely better in the long term. Noah as a horse, I'm gonna go with the horse. His combat is like, it's like very mediocre, but it's good enough to where the horse gives him the edge, I think. Not sure about Trek though. I think so. I think it's still good enough, but I've never really used Trek, so this is coming from lack of experience. Definitely Fur better than Linnea though. Gonzalez versus Linnea, that's funny since she recruits him. I like Gonzalez better, I think. Geese too, yeah. I think like Linnea has some good chip once she's trained, but she's a really big pain to train. Whereas these guys are like usable at base level. They can contribute reasonably. 2 bad units. Do you want one with 1 range or 1 2 range? I'm honestly tempted to just vote Linnea for the 2 range. If I'm gonna train a bad unit, I would rather they have the option to attack from afar, and then if they miss, they don't die instantly. And she hits some resistance and everything. It's just easier to train her up, I think. In this case, though, archers are so bad, I'm gonna go with the mercenary, basically. Oh god, so bad. Both so bad. I'm gonna go with Dorothy, because 4 move is unforgivable. Rutger versus Marcus, battle of the top tiers. I'm gonna go with Rutger, I think. He joins early enough to where I think, like, once he joins, there are things he can do that Marcus cannot. That is like a testament to how good Rutger's combat is. So even though Marcus helps you a whole lot, Rutger's utility throughout the entire game outclasses it. I think he's definitely worse in the late game where movement starts to shine more and you have like Milady and Percival kind of taking over. But Rutger can still be rescue dropped in places and be useful. Marcus can help with those rescue drops though, don't get me wrong. Marcus can still do stuff in the late game, but not as much as Rutger can. I do think Marcus is better than Shanna though. Lance versus Shanna. I actually think Shanna is a better unit than the Cavaliers, and I think Pitfall 6 pretty much shows why. So I'm not going to waste too much time talking about it. Lance versus Chlorine, I think Lance is better. Not by a whole lot, I think Chlorine is really good. But I'll give him a chance. Ellen is basically non-mounted Chlorine, so we'll go with Chlorine. Deke, like, Ellen is not Saul. She's definitely a lot worse than Saul. Her staff rank doesn't reach A until maybe like 16x or something. But even that is like really good. But Deke, is solid from the get-go and never gets bad, whereas Ellen is like sort of useful and then gets pretty good utility-wise. So I find my characters are hard to evaluate. You guys don't know half of it. Okay, whatever. We'll go with the Lou and Ellen. I'm gonna say Ellen. I think I do like staffs. They're good. Definitely better than Merlin's though. I think Chad's utility wins as well. This is not a very good unit, so I'm actually gonna take Merlin's here. 2 bad units. Lot or Roy? I don't know. It's a good question. Thinking lots because he can promote. In theory, and warrior promotion bonuses are pretty good, whereas Roy is doomed to be mediocre forever and a half until like 21x. So I think overall Lot's combat is better. So we'll go with him. Ward, oh my god. I'm actually gonna put Roy between the fighters. Weird as it is, because Ward is just so bad at combat, like holy shit. I'm actually tempted to even put Walt over him, despite his stats. His offense is the worst, but Ward is so unreliable, man. He never hits anything reliably. I mean, I can make him hit things, but it sucks. Boris versus Ward. This is one where I pick Ward. Nime is great, but you can't beat Milady, man. She's too good. Latham, same thing. Percival, though, I do think it's still tough, because Percival is like invincible still, but Nime joins a little shortly after Percival, and the staff rank, the warp is just so good. Like, if you think FE6 is tedious, you should try using warp more often. That's really my advice to you. I do think Percival beats Yodel. Cecilia, I think, is more useful than Yodel, just on the amount of availability. Yodel is better when he's there, though. Tates versus Yodel or Yoder. I think it's Yoder, but this thing says Yodel. It's how tough this is pretty much evidence for how bad Tate is at combat, really. It's like she's so mediocre at it at base level, even with the hard bonuses and everything. But I do think it is not so much worse that it's like worth 10 plus chapters of availability. So there we go. Echidna, though, I think I did put Tate over Echidna. I guess I will go with Echidna. She's around a lot longer. Zeiss, though, is only getting good roughly when Yodel joins, I think. So that makes me want to give the edge to Yodel. Zeiss and Douglas basically join at the same time, but Aziz is much better. Barth is also better than Douglas, although they both have great facial hair. I will say that much. This guy doesn't have much facial hair, though. But I think he's better than Douglas anyway. Igren, yeah, better than Douglas for sure. Kath 2. Fa 2, not like Douglas very much, as you can see. Ray, I'm not sure. But I think overall most people would find him better because, you know, long term and everything. Like, I think it's more of a hassle to use him than it is to use Douglas, but in the long term it will pay off more. But this could go either way. I do think Douglas is better than Yodel because, you know, less availability and less good combat. Well, you could argue Yu's combat is better than Ray, I think, but I haven't looked at the stats that much. Like, I only remember have some stats memorized. Dayan versus Yu, I do think Yu is better here. Beating Sophia with 1,000,000 other units. Oh, battle of the bad. I think. Actually, no, I can't rate Sophia over Carol for a guiding ring, right? I can't. But can I do it for Yuno? I'm actually gonna do it. I'm gonna rate Sophia over them. Rutger versus Saul. Rutger best, also better than Saul. Not by that much. I think this is where I start voting Saul. I do think he's better than the Cavaliers because Warp is just so good in this game. Shin versus Alan, I'm gonna take Alan here, much better. Both good combat, but Shin is locked to 2 range basically. That's annoying. I think she's better than Shin. Shanna. I also think Lance is better than Shin. Basically, I'm gonna put Alan and Lance in the same spot like 99% of the time. Chlorine, I also want to say she's better than Shin. Like, Chlorine is also like a potential warper, but again, later than like Ellen, I think. I believe she has a lower staff rank. Maybe I'm wrong though. No, Ellen, they both definitely have D. Ellen has like slightly higher, but that means that Chlorine is not very far behind. Ellen's like chapter 2 and Chlorine is mid chapter 4. That is a pretty big difference because chapters are pretty long, but I think she can eventually make it. I definitely think Shin is better than Deke. I don't like Deke very much. 2 units that are best in short term, not that good long term. Dig is more important when he joins, but Zealot is just really nice to have. And he has the mount, so mount it is. I do think Shin Su is better than Deke. I do think Deke is better than Astor though. Wow, almost at 80%, but we have almost done like 200 battles. Like, wow, this game is such a huge cast. Heal utility versus thief utility. I will go with healing. You probably saw that I like. See, the reason I like staff so much is this game has just very strong enemies, so you want to heal their wounds a lot. And I mean, even though avoid rates are very high because weapon accuracy is so low, when you get hit, it just hurts so much. It's so important to have healer around. And then the second part of it is just warp skipping is super valuable. This game gives you a huge warp range and big maps that you want to get over and skip. So that's why. I think I forgot what I rated Chad. Did I put him below or higher than you? Or yeah, Lou. I'm not sure, but I think Lou is better than Astor. Two thieves. Like Astor is the better one when they're both around, but Chad gets a couple of things that no one else can get, like that gold from chapter 6 and stuff. But Astor's combat, I like it so much, I'm gonna rate him over Chad. Klein, I like the thief utility better actually. This might seem inconsistent. There is a little bit of time between this and the first half of this, so maybe I'm voting weirdly. I really wonder what my final tier list is gonna look like. Marlys, Klein is a good unit. I think Noah's good enough, and Shrek too. Fear is what I start having my doubts, but I'm still gonna vote Fear. And Gonzalez, not Geese though. Fuck Geese. I actually voted. That would be weird actually. I voted Gonzalez over Geese though, so I'm actually gonna have to do this and then put Marlys in between, I guess. Yeah, I guess. Lot versus Geese. Very similar units, but Geese is much better after promotion because of the crit bonus. Lot doesn't really have anything that counters it. He gets E-bows, which is much worse than Barth's D-bows. So nothing to compensate for the 30 crit really. Linnea, I do think is worse than Lot. Roy, oh god, am I gonna vote Linnea over Roy? I don't think so. Like, Roy isn't the worst unit ever. I've been voting him below a lot of units that were good, but he does have some utility. He does have rapier utility, and he does have a couple of chapters where he's good with the binding blade. It's just not much. Okay, he's not a very good character for most of the game, but he can do some things. Linnea I think is better than Walt for sure. OJ definitely better in the long term, and you know, he's just like trainable. Walt is like, well, I guess he can beat this character. Battle of the Bad 4.0, we'll go with Ward here. I also think Barth is better than Dorothy. Ooh, okay, so I don't think these characters have, like, either of them haven't lost a match yet, so that's why they're matched now. I actually think the best unit in the game is Milady, but FE6 at the top is very balanced. There's no unit that dominates a single whole game, not on their own. Rutger dominates the early game when he joins, but he misses the first 2 chapters. He then dominates the rest of the game, but he's never had a mount, right? So he kind of falls behind at some points. Milady, on the other hand, she joins like midway through the game, but she is the best unit for the rest of it. And then you got like Percival, who has the same stuff, but he doesn't fly. And then you got Marcus, who like dominates the early game. So I think Rutger, Milady, Marcus is like the top 3. I think Milady's the best one though. I think complete dominance over the mid game trumps unmounted dominance for the first half, because flying is just amazing. I will beat Leyland with Rutger. Beat Leyland with Rutger, and then Marcus over Leyland. Yeah, I think so. I do think Marcus is top 3. Saul versus Leyland. This is close. I will say Leyland though. Dancing is OP. Saul, I think, is one of the few units who has a really solid argument against Nime, because he's basically her staff utility for, like, he beats her out on staff utility for most of the game. He gets warp after like chapter 14, so like in theory he's only around warping for like 4 chapters or so, 5 chapters before Nime joins. But I still use him out, and then when they both join, he's not doing that badly. His magic is average compared to Nime's God tier, but he still has enough warp range, I think, to be competitive. I actually think Alan and Lance are like slightly overrated by the community, and I think when we had the Democratic tier lists, I think I did vote Nime over the Cavaliers, but I don't know if I could say the same if it wasn't like an efficiency setting. Like, if we're just playing to make it easier on regular players, I think most people would get more out of Alan and Lance. So for that reason, I will vote Alan and Lance over Nime. Shanna, I will vote below Nime though. I think, actually I voted Shanna above the Cavaliers, didn't I? Yeah, I did. So I think I'll have to be consistent then. Chlorine. No, I will definitely vote Nime over Chlorine. Percival as well. Even though you could make an argument that Chlorine is better, but still. Ooh, this is a tricky one. I think people... I know what you're probably thinking. Like, you made a waifu episode on Cecilia, so you probably think Cecilia is better than Chlorine. But I actually really like both units. They're both so good. It's just, I'm just saying you should use both. Like, my argument all along has been don't ditch Cecilia just because you have Chlorine. Chlorine is definitely around for so much longer that it's easy to argue in her favor. And I think I will vote Chlorine. Cecilia has better magic, I think, on average, but magic isn't everything, as I showed. Like, I know Reinhardt says differently, but magic is not everything. Shin versus Cecilia. Yeah, Shin is pretty damn good. So I will vote Cecilia over Zealot, though. Much better long term. Tate versus Zealots. I guess I'll go with Tate. Not a big fan of either units combat when Tate joins. Tate much better in the long term. Zealot has that early game part where he's like good, but it's like he's not Marcus. All right, he's only your best unit for a little bit and only by a little bit, so it's very different from Marcus. I'll still vote him, but it's like barely. Sue versus, yeah, I think Sue is better than Tate. Deke versus Tate is tricky. I'll actually vote the Flyer here. Deke versus Echidna is like Battle of the Heroes. Neither of them are like super long-term potential, but I think if you're gonna train Deke, he will beat Echidna on most accounts. I think Echidna's faster. She gets slowed down by a little bit by some weapons, whereas Deke doesn't, but you know, Deke is still fast enough to double like half the enemies or something, so it's still like decent. He's never bad. There's never really a period where Echidna's like super hardly outclassing him and Deke has the better growths. Ellen and Echidna. I'll say Ellen here for staff utility. Lou. Well, Echidna like trashes him in the durability department when she joins, but she's not so durable that she can frontline for the rest of the game. Neither is Lou, but he can backline pretty well. I'll take Lou, I guess. It sounds very inconsistent, but you know what I mean, right? Astor versus Echidna, I like the thief utility enough to vote him over her. Almost at 90%, almost. So that means we probably have around 30 battles left. Less than that. Chad, yeah, sure. Thief utility better than Echidna. These units join at the same time, so they're pretty easy to compare. And I think Echidna's much better in the long term because she doubles stuff. Klein is only better against Wyverns, really. And Echidna can use the Worm Slayer anyway, or the Killer Axe, so not even that much worse there. Yodel, I do want to say is worse because he joined so late. He has like the same number of good chapters as Klein does, but his chapters are better. I'll actually vote Yodel here. Size, I think, is also better by just a little bit. Maybe not though. It's very close because like Zeiss starts off worse for sure compared to Klein, but his ending is much better. So it depends on your preference, really. I'll go with Zeiss here. I think Barth probably has about as much attack with the steel bow as Klein has with the silver bow because his strength is just that good. So I'm actually gonna vote Barth right here. I do think Klein is better than Garrett though. Noah versus Garrett. Noah's around for so much longer. I'm just gonna vote for him. Same for Trek. I know Trek and Noah are not the same unit. Like Noah's actually significantly better, but I just don't have enough data on like Trek, you know. So I could just keep voting him along with Noah. Fur, I do think is better than Garrett for sure. Gonzalez is basically better Garrett when he joins, except for the whole thing where Garrett can get rescued where Gonzalez cannot. So if you're playing at a slow tempo, Gonzalez is better. If you're playing fast, Garrett is the better unit though. Merlin is, yeah, whatever. Geese, same thing as Garrett basically, and the same thing as Gonzalez. Lots is like, he's either like early game dude that you drop or a long-term failure, whereas Garrett is pretty much always okay when he joins. Having a hard time deciding here, I'll just pick at random. Lot, I think, beats Igra in utility overall. If it were like a game where one range was super valuable, I actually prefer good 2 range over mediocre 1 range, so we'll vote for Igra. Kath, No, I think this is where I'm gonna vote lots. Roy, I do think it's tough, but I will vote Roy here. As annoying as this is, the utility or very bad baby units. Fuck, Kath, I guess. This is so hard. We only got like less than 25 left, I'm sure. Linnea versus Faye. I'll go with Linnea. OJ versus, oh god, OJ's so bad. Get out of here. Faye it is. Ray versus OJ, Ogier, whatever. I think by the time Ray joins, you can make OJ good enough, and they both are annoying to train. So I'll give the edge to OJ for this one. Both kind of failure, but like this, I think Volt is better for most playthroughs where you're not intending to use either in the long term. Long term Ray is better. Ray it is. Douglas, I do like him better than Volt. I do. You as well, yeah. I just Volt is so bad. Stats are so bad. Dayan. Well, this is where I'm gonna vote Volt. Sorry, Dayan. I do think Ward is forever bad. Dayan is good for one chapter, whatever. Karel never good enough though. He's like okay filler though. Whereas Ward is forever bad. Forever bad. You can make an argument for Sophia being better with the Guiding Ring and everything, but I'll listen to common knowledge. I'll say Ward is better, even though we'll regret. Yeah, sure, Ward is better. Oh god, all these units are so terrible, so terrible. I'm actually gonna put Sophia above Barth. I don't care. Guiding Ring is better. Just 5% left. Let's see. Barth. So bad, like so actually bad. We'll say for flyer utility. Okay, in the game. Okay, we did it. We actually did it. Wow, that went fast. Like, look at this. Boom. Okay, we did it. So let's see the results. Top 3 is as expected. Milady, Rutger, Marcus, Latham, Elfin, Saul. Okay. Alan, Shanna, Lance. Oh, Shanna ended up in between the Cavaliers. I don't know if I did that intentionally or not. Like, I forgot if I've ever voted Shanna versus Lance, for example, or Alan versus Shanna. It's tough. I think I might have been inconsistent on that. Nime, Percival, Chlorine, Shin, Cecilia. This is all reasonable. Cecilia might be a little high in retrospect. I don't know if I ever would put her above Sue like this. That seems kind of weird. I don't remember voting Cecilia versus Sue, but maybe I'm wrong. Tate, Deke, yeah, sure. This is such a mix between how I would rate it and how I think most people would feel it, so that's why it might be a little inconsistent, but not seeing anything major wrong. Yodel looks a little bit high, but at the same time, this mid-tier in FE6 is just such a huge mess. I never know what to vote for here. Such a huge mess. The bottom of my screen is not showing an OBS, so I'm being a little bit weird with the cursor. I mean, nothing is super inagreeable for me. More than this is like one of those really hard units to rate, really. This is so hard to make. This game has so many units. It has, let's see, there's like 54 units that have to be matched against each other. It's so big. Holy shit. Well, at least these are all correct, the bottom ones. Oh, you can't see them. Below Dorothy is like Sophia, Barth, Gwendolyn, and then all the, what's it called, trial map characters. So yeah, let me know what you think in the comments, what you would do differently. You can take the, I guess I'll say test. You can take the Tumblr sorter thing yourself if you follow the link in the description. If you had a good time, let me know. I haven't done one of these in a long while. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you around. Bye.